Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with a Fallout 4 news update. Today we're going to be talking about Nuka World, and I have a special guest joining me today. Will you kindly introduce yourself?
And it is me, the Lone Vault Wanderer. We apologise for not doing a podcast this weekend, but Matty will explain all of that.
Yeah, we figured since E3 has been really chaotic and we just haven't been able to get anything out for you guys, that we figured we'd sit down together and do this little commentary for you guys, talking about some brand new information we got on Nuka World that introduces something new to the Fallout franchise. Now, this information comes straight from the Steam page, so I'm going to read it from there and we will speculate a little bit afterwards. So it says, take a trip to Nuka World, a vast amusement park, now a lawless city of raiders. Explore an all-new region with an open wasteland and park zones like Safari Adventure, Dry Rock Gulch, Kitty Kingdom, and the Galactic Zone. Lead lethal gangs of raiders and use them to conquer settlements, bending the Commonwealth to your will. Nuka World features new quests, raiders, weapons, creatures, and more. Enjoy the ride.
That second last sentence sounds fucking amazing, doesn't it? Let's repeat that for everyone. Lead lethal gangs of raiders and use them to conquer settlements, bending the Commonwealth to your will. We have never had, as from my memory anyways, we've never had a DLC like this.
No, we haven't. The one thing that's interesting, though, is they say an all-new region, but it says bend the Commonwealth to your will. That's the one thing that sticks out to me. I don't know, are we going to a new area? We have to be, obviously, but it says... Do you think this feature is going to carry over into Fallout 4, like the base game?
It'd be interesting because it seems like no matter what DLC it is, you can't necessarily carry over what you've done in the main game because people would have followed different paths. Whether you followed the Institute, whether you followed Brotherhood of Steel, whatever it is. It seems like this is very separated from what the main game was, and the fact that you can just lead lethal gangs of raiders, it seems very divorced, at least from my opinion.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. These lethal gangs of raiders, how do you think they're going to be incorporated into the game itself? I mean,
fucking awesome.
I mean, they say here that we're going to conquer settlements, but what exactly does that entail? Like, do you think there's going to be more to it? How deep does it go?
It's very, I guess, unclear at this stage. On face value, it seems that we're going to be the bad guy in this DLC,
right? Yeah.
But you know, with Fallout, there's always multiple paths that you can take, and in particular with Fire Harbor, there was multiple paths you can take in terms of who you supported. So maybe in supporting or helping these raiders, we're actually following another purpose, and a more noble purpose, if you will. I guess, on face value, being able to help raiders, I mean, this is being as evil as we've ever been able to be in Fallout.
Yeah, now the question here is that maybe we could take the raiders and make them good people. So you flip it on your head a little bit, yeah. So you can be good, change the raiders and stuff. That would be interesting. But also you could be the typical raider, which is let's just kill everything, which is interesting because now they're saying like conquer settlements. So I wonder if there's going to be a little bit more of a, instead of just coming into the settlement helping people, you're going to kill people now.
And
you're going to take their stuff.
We've never had a description of a DLC from my memory that's described a DLC in this way. It's always been, which side are you going to fall on? Are you going to help this this gang or this group or faction or whatever? This is pretty out and out clear that we're going to be the bad or the evil faction in this DLC. Maybe there isn't other people that we can support or an ulterior motive in terms of being good while we're being bad at the same time.
You think they'd say that, right? Because they said that with Far Harbor right when they announced it, that you're going to be picking between synths or the Children of Adam and stuff. So I wonder if that means that right now they're just putting us in the bad guy slot, especially because of the words bending the Commonwealth to your will. That's saying they have no option.
Yeah.
They're yours.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. One thing they also give us details on, it seems, are kind of zones, highlights, like the Safari Adventure, Dry Rock Gulch, Kitty Kingdom, and the Galactic Zone. You can kind of picture in your head what this is exactly is going to look like, where we could see a Dry Rock Gulch being kind of like a rocky area, maybe Safari is more of a desert-like, and obviously these are to bring this Nuka World theme park to life, and it's a good way to play with the environment itself, I think, where it could give us some good visual variety. I'm excited, obviously, for the Galactic Zone.
No, definitely. I mean, it's very interesting in terms, if you've ever been to an actual amusement park, you have these different areas where you have different rides and different experiences. This seems to, it's like going to give us, I guess in a sense, all these different environments in one specific DLC. So Safari Adventure, for some reason, the first thought that came to my mind was Safari Zone from Pokemon. But
yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Oh my god.
But like this kind of, I guess, bushy area where a bunch of creatures live. But then Galactic Zone...
Pokemon, basically.
No, but it seems like it's going to give us a bunch of variety within the one DLC. And to be honest, it's kind of ingenious using an amusement park, to this effect, because that's essentially what they are. I mean, they give us a bunch of different rides based on numerous IPs. Like, I remember back in the day, I went to America and I went to California Adventure, and there's just different, and Disneyland as well, different areas, whether it's the Matterhorn or whether it's like the Indiana Jones ride, different themes based on different IPs. This is adopting a very, very similar approach.
Yeah, see me, I'm a pussy and I don't go to amusement parks. But I can comment on the fact
I've been to amusement parks in your own country, Matthew.
I know, and more importantly is that it seems that this is going to be like the full thing. You know, they're adding quests, weapons, creatures, and stuff, so it's definitely going to be a full expansion, it seems. But this doesn't sound like it's going to be more in what you do there, less about the exploration. But yeah, Todd's like, we want to go out with a bang here for this final DLC.
So he said final DLC. So to provide a bit of context, so this was not in the actual Bethesda E3 press conference. It was in an interview that was performed after with Adam Sessler. I just had a voice pop there, but he said specifically that this was going to be the last DLC, and he kind of stumbled when he said Fallout. So people are assuming that he said fall as opposed to Fallout, as in autumn. And then you've had Pete Hines come afterwards, and he said, this may not be the last DLC. And he actually responded to a tweet of mine where he suggested that he didn't want to speak on Todd's behalf. So, to be honest, I think they're undecided as to what they're going to do. Maybe they're going to see how well the Season Pass sells in terms of Nuka World and all these other DLCs and expansions to see whether they do something more.
Yeah, me personally, I'm basically on the same page as you. I plan on making a separate video discussing all of that because that seems to be like an evolving sort of thing. As for Nuka World, though, that just sounds fun. I'm looking forward to it because it's different. That's the thing. We know with like Far Harbor, it looked like it wanted to fix the wrongs of the dialogue system, show that they can do role playing. This is showing that the goofy side of Fallout still lives as well, I think. I think that's what they're going for with this, that it's a really weird and kind of different DLC.
And you also mentioned that Todd Howard in an interview kind of implied that they, I don't want to say stuffed up with a dialogue system, but maybe they didn't execute it as effectively as they wanted to initially.
Yeah, it was on the GameSpot one where he talked about modding. It was around the 6-minute mark for those of you guys who want to give it a look. And yeah, he talked a little bit about how there were certain features in Fallout 4 that were well received and some weren't. And he said the shooting, he thought, you know, this is a great shooter, but stuff that we wanted to take liberties with, like the dialogue system, didn't pan out as well. And so we go back and we try to improve on that stuff in a DLC like Far Harbor, and you can see how much they really listen. So I'm wondering if they've heard people say that, hey, Fallout is a serious universe, but we do also want to have a little fun in it. That dark humor from like Fallout 2, for example, where it's just random stuff. Like I think in Fallout 1 or 2, I forgot which one it was, you could just donate sperm. and that was that was a quest. And so, you know, that type of stuff I'd love to see come to Fallout 4.
And a lot of people that have talked about the dialogue system, they've specifically mentioned that, of course, while you can be a good guy, whatever that means to you, it's much more difficult to actually be an evil persona in Fallout 4. Maybe this DLC is a way to satisfy those fans that felt they haven't been able to be that evil character. Of course, it's more of a tack on, and maybe it's not going to fulfill everyone to their actual needs, but it's a way for us to have a lot of fun. Again, as I mentioned before, we haven't really had a DLC that's like this. I think of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Most of us gave us choice in terms of what we wanted to do. It never has been out and out, you are the bad guys, bend the Commonwealth to your will. And interestingly, they say bend the Commonwealth to your will. That's referring to the entire Commonwealth as a whole,
That's
not
why I
the
was
specific
asking,
area.
I was wondering if you thought that maybe it did apply to the full game instead of just this DLC. I think it actually expands upon the base game, which is interesting because I think what they're doing here is looking at the DLC from a standpoint where they go, okay, let's think if someone was buying a Fallout 4 special or Game of the Year edition, they were going to get all the DLC, how would that complete the full package of what Fallout 4 should have been? They said that they put what they wanted to in the game, and I believe them because they had to crunch a lot, and they had a lot of time with this game, so I think they put out what they wanted to. But I think now with incorporating feedback, they're thinking of it from a different perspective. And they do think in the long term, it seems. So I think with these DLCs, they're thinking, okay, let's see how they respond, for example, with Far Harbor. Let's see how they respond to with role-playing and just a hardcore experience. And the reception was great. And now I think they're seeing with this, let's see how many people enjoy playing as the bad guy.
Exactly.
And seeing how the base game goes that way.
And it kind of scares me, though, because the fact that if you look at Far Harbor, in effect, it was a separate story, a separate landmass in terms of the story that was developed.
Yeah.
Here, if we are referring to the Commonwealth being bent to your will, generally, is this going to be a wrap-up to the Fallout 4 universe as a whole in terms of the Commonwealth? Maybe Todd was very fervent in his belief that this will be the last DLC, which is why this story is not just revolved around Nuka World, but the Commonwealth as a whole.
Yeah. And for those of you who are wondering, a lot of people think that the two major projects that they're working on are going to be maybe a big Fallout 4 DLC,
No.
but Todd and Pete both came out and said that's not the case whatsoever, that they're fully produced games. So if they are going to be working on Fallout 4 DLC, they will say that. It's more DLC. So just know that we can't really beat around the bush with that. I'm assuming with a game as big as Fallout 4, there's still a very fervent fan base. I can't see them dropping it too soon.
No, exactly. And I actually made a video recently about this where I kind of said I was wrong about them probably doing 3 or 4 major DLC. But it seems like after Pete Hines had his comments that they're pretty much undecided themselves. And to be honest, that makes sense. You know, they're a company, they're humans. They can't have everything decided then and there. So maybe Nuka World isn't going to be the last thing that we see. Perhaps, and I hope, and most people probably hope this is the case, I don't care if we don't see another Wasteland Workshop style DLC, so long as we see another story-driven DLC, because when I was talking with a lot of people about Fallout 3 in New Vegas, they were releasing story-driven DLCs every 2 or 3 months, you know, the size of Broken Steel or The Pit, which was a bit smaller, or Mothership Zeta, things like that. So maybe they can just say, alright, look, here's Phase 2 of the DLC, Phase 3, we're just going to create another awesome DLC and take 2 months with it, as opposed to 3, and have a bunch of filler DLC in the meantime.
Yeah, and what's weird is that I don't recall there ever being like a monthly demand for DLC. I think most of us were just saying we want just more Fallout, more expanding into the new areas. And so, me personally, I think the Vault one looks interesting, and I know there's a mod for it. I've talked about this a little bit.
And it's interesting you say that, because now and this is the excuse, I guess, or the rationale that I used in the past. When a lot of these DLC, like Wasteland Workshop, were released on the console, the rationale that I used was that, well, consoles don't have mods, so PC players need to think of them in that regard when these DLCs are released. Now console players do have mods, and perhaps that Vault-style DLC where you can create your own Vault that's a mod could be available on console.
Yeah, it does have to be optimized to some degree.
Yeah,
I
of
know
course.
that much.
Yeah, but like, what do we say now? Do we say that these kinds of Wasteland Workshop DLCs can already be done by mods? I don't like using that rationale, but effectively they kind of can. But no one can provide these story quest DLCs other than Bethesda, because they have the voice actors, they have the expertise, let's be honest, and you know, all of the knowledge and the money and the production value. So at least I'm hoping that maybe they just ditch, you know, instead of doing 2 Wasteland Workshop style DLCs and then another 3rd big DLC, just give us another 3rd big DLC and maybe a 4th if the season pass does well.
In the end of the day, this is some interesting news on Nuka World, and we just want to quickly talk about the stance on DLC as it is today. I'll have some separate videos on some of these topics, because we got to work our way up to the Contraptions DLC, which is dropping just next week.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting in its own right. But nonetheless, Lone, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's all right. And in closing thoughts, guys, Bethesda kicked ass. Whether you would like to admit it or not, their press conference was better than... In terms of the software companies, they kicked ass.
And by that, he means the Ubisoft, the
Yeah.
EA. And I would agree with that, personally. I know people are going to say, well, they're a Bethesda channel. Of course they're going to fucking agree with them. Oh, my God. But I was starting to side with Ubisoft, and then I thought to myself, you know what? No, I think Bethesda came out and really just
Had a very
showed...
strong showing.
Yeah, if there wasn't that many leaks... I wonder who did that. You know, I think that...
Who the fuck did that?
Yeah, who's the prick? What the fuck is that, man? But I think if there weren't for that many leaks, my mind would have been blown with like Prey and the DLC,
Skyrim Remaster.
Yeah, I think I would have really been shocked. But that's just how the industry works nowadays, I think, because of the social media and stuff. But nonetheless, once again, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome.
And we hope you guys enjoyed this little, once again, a substitute, because last time we did this, the video did really well.
It did stupidly well.
Yeah.
It has like 100,000 views. What the fuck, guys?
Yeah, I don't know where that came from, but we hope
Watch our podcast more, alright?
Yeah, how about that? We hope you guys enjoyed, though, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.
Peace.